I'm very excited to hand things over to Victor. InnovationOne is an organization that has been around for a long time, and one of the things that separates them from a lot of other consultants in this space is the amount of research that they've done. And now he's distilled this research into these 6 traits that he's going to tell you about. So Victor, thank you very much, and I'll hand it off to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica. We have enjoyed the partnership and working with you and other people on the staff, and your organization is top notch. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I also want to say to everyone out there, to all the participants, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you this morning, to going through this exciting research that we have done with all of you. And we're just really excited to talk about this. You know, this is a very great title for this presentation. You don't have to master anything, just these 6 traits. And the reason you don't have to master anything is that with innovation and creating a culture of innovation, it's really an attitude. It's an attitude about understanding what are the issues facing our customers, our market, how is the world changing, what types of innovation do we need, and then creating that culture that moves forward in an optimistic way. You know, it's an old axiom to say, experiment a lot. You know, what failed today? What's tomorrow's experiment? What did we learn? And keep that process moving forward, and you will get great innovation with that. So it's a great title. You don't have to master everything, but mastering these 6 traits, or at least practicing them, again, you don't have to master them, but practicing them will greatly help your innovation. As Jessica mentioned, I'm very happy to take questions as you have them, and then we'll also reserve time at the end. So what you see in front of you is the InnovationOne Health Index. Jessica mentioned that we've been around for a while. So let me just talk to you a little bit about that. Then I'm going to get into why innovation is so important. And a lot of people think innovation is too risky. Frankly, the riskiest strategy is the status quo, and the research shows that. But we're going to talk about why innovation is so important for a privately owned company or for a public company, for government agencies, and for organizations like research labs, why innovation is so important. So the Innovation Health Index, or the InnovationOne Health Index, which you see there, it's that circle on the left. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is the InnovationOne Health Index model. It has 4 organizational dimensions: leadership, resources, knowledge management, or now we tend to use the term idea management of your employees and also your external ecosystem, and then the process to move ideas forward and commercialize them. And within each of these 4 dimensions are 12 drivers of innovation. Management setting the vision, the goals, the context, connecting with employees, allowing employees to connect with it. It's as much bottoms up as it is tops down and sideways to sideways. Having a strategic model that's dynamic, not staid, not slow, but takes action. The resources are, certainly you have to invest in the technologies and the labs and the facilities. These days, we're in the 4th industrial revolution. You have to invest in digital technology and, more importantly, digital transformation. But what our research shows is that investing in employee skills and behaviors is important so that they're creative. And most importantly is organizational learning, that the whole organization understands what your customers want, what their needs are, and they understand what your successes and failures are. That's critical. Organizational learning, different than employee skills. Having a knowledge management process that allows people to generate ideas, build upon those ideas, share their ideas, and making quick decisions about them, and keeping track of what decisions you've made, what you're working on, and having measures and metrics for that is critically important. And an idea management process that everyone knows. And then finally, once you have those ideas you want to take to your customers, it's the process to commercialize them. And this is the graveyard of innovation. Many ideas get stymied in manufacturing or in sales and marketing or wherever and don't see the light of day. This is critically important. So we believe we have the most robust innovation health assessment, which I've just gone through. It was developed by Dr. Brooke Dobney. He has published over 20 peer-reviewed academic articles on innovation and also additional articles on strategic planning. And when you add all those up, it gets close to 30. This has been benchmarked in over 3,000 organizations with over, we have tens of thousands of executives, leaders, and employees in our database. So with that, we now have 9 different industry benchmarks, whether it's manufacturing or research labs or high tech, mining, government agencies, that we can benchmark your results in. We also have benchmarks for 10 different countries. We have over 17 years of experience, over 85 clients that we've worked with commercially. And our original index that created the InnovationOne Health Index had 72 questions. Talk about love and data. We now, as you know, have gotten it down to 6 questions. And these 6 questions correspond to the 6 traits, and they have 78% validity to the original model. That's pretty good for 6 questions. So we're very excited about it. And at the end of this presentation, I'll have a special offer for all of you listening to take advantage of for an organizational assessment free for your organization. So stay tuned for that. And these questions, again, correspond to the 6 traits of highly innovative organizations. So I told you I was going to talk about why innovation, why is it important, and that the riskiest strategy isn't being innovative. That's a lot of CEOs worry about when they talk to us. Innovation, you're going to have everyone running amok and they'll lose focus on getting their jobs done or hitting today's goals or meeting this quarter's financial results. And I understand how important that is. I've had over 30 years in private industry as an HR leader. Companies that work hard at innovation and do these 6 traits, they have better financial results. And it's not just our research that shows that. Our research shows that companies that are in the first quartile of the InnovationOne Health Index have 22% higher financial performance. But in addition to that, Arthur D. Little has published a study that shows it's 2.5 times higher new product sales for highly innovative companies. Booz and Company, their study, great study on innovation, different than our study. They found the same thing we did, 22% higher profit margins with companies that focus on innovation. Arthur D. Little showed that there's a 10 times higher return on innovation investments when companies focus on innovation like we do, where the whole culture is aligned to innovation. And what innovation does is it helps a company be number 1 for creating sustained competitive advantage in your industry or in your domain. There's been a lot with COVID-19 and necessity is truly the mother of invention. And so in an afternoon, employees were told to take what you need with you, go home and work. What they thought would be for 3 months turns out to be about 14 months or longer. And people were more productive. People had more time for themselves. They didn't miss the commute. Now, there was added stress with it. It's very stressful to do that, stress with COVID-19. There's a lot of stress with what's going to be the new office. Will we go back to the old normal, which I wouldn't recommend, or will we go to some type of a hybrid model? But the point for innovation in this what is emerging as the post-COVID-19 world is that you can't depend on necessity being the mother of innovation or invention. You have to have a sustainable and supportive culture for it. And that's what we're going to talk about. So in the government sector, if you're somebody who's in the public sector or work in a government agency, innovation is very helpful for government. A great study, lengthy study, published by the Harvard Business School, conducted, I should say, by the Harvard Business School, published in the Stanford Social Innovation Review, found that government agencies were able to substantially drive out costs when they implemented novel technologies and service models that got the job done better for their constituents. So innovation is clearly very advantageous for government agencies, and particularly with so much in change right now. In addition, if you're in a research lab and you're listening in, research labs, when they focus on innovation, on entrepreneurship, on external and internal collaboration, and focus their opportunities, when they do all these things, not just publishing in academic journals, but working on applied technology to be used this quarter or next quarter with their external clients, these research labs do much better. They have better performance, more invention disclosure, and higher results. What could be better than that? So innovation is really critical if you're a private company, if you're a research lab, if you're a government agency. The research supports that, and it's very exciting. By the way, on this slide and the previous slide, I have cited this research if you want to take a look at it. So we asked you to fill out a survey. Many of you did that. About 79 of you did that. And these are the 6 traits of highly innovative companies that correspond with these 6 questions we asked you. And so these are these 6 traits. I'm going to go through them. The first one is about leaders and what leaders do. And leaders in highly innovative companies make innovation a strategic imperative. It's just as important as the financial plan, the annual operating budget, the sales plan, the marketing plan, the new product plan. Innovation is a strategic imperative. And like any strategic imperative, it has a vision, it has strategies, it has goals. They're well deployed. Everybody knows what they are. And these leaders enthusiastically and relentlessly communicate it. I'll give you some examples later. These companies and these leaders, they invest in innovation, you know, in the research labs and so on, but most importantly, in the time and the space that employees have to be innovative. And not just their PhDs, not just the research and development organization, but all employees, whether it's recruiters in HR or people on the factory floor or customer service, they allow time for it, particularly in the settings of that and within the context of what that organization is going through. What changes by context, I mean, what changes its customers are experiencing, the new technologies emerging, the social and demographic trends that are going on out there, all of that. The third thing they do is they allow collaboration. They unleash employee creativity. They want you to ask questions. They want you to ask their managers to ask questions. They tell their managers, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Let them ask questions. Some people have to talk everything out loud before they get it. Let them ask questions. Let them make suggestions. Let them go off on their own and make suggestions. And you keep them focused on today's goals or this quarter's goals by keeping a focus on that, but letting them also ask questions. Unleash that creativity, and you do it with collaboration. And what's most important is you do it with your ecosystem, not just your team, not just the department down the hall, but people outside of your organization. And if it's with customers, even better. If it's with suppliers, even better. If it's with an academic organization, a university that you have a close relationship with, even better. Collaboration, internal and external. The other one is the idea management process, that everybody in the organization understands the process for them to advance an idea. That process may look a bit different in manufacturing than it does in R&D, but everyone should have access to a process to think through things, and everyone should be given feedback on it, and everyone should know that it's serious. Take it seriously. You know, this isn't a place to be a smart aleck. It's a place to make an idea, to make an improvement. And when the organization improves, employment security improves. People are empowered. People are empowered, and top management, after they make innovation a strategic imperative, create a strategy of vision and goals, they get out of the way. They keep track of things. They make sure it stays on course to what the vision is, but they let people lower in the organization innovate and make decisions on what's going to succeed and not succeed based on well understood goals and milestones. We're big fans of OKRs. We'll talk about that later. And for all of you in HR out there, performance management systems, this is really critical, need to be changed to support innovation, to encourage it, and even incentivize it with financial results. Recognition, that's terrific too, but financial results help. But more importantly, if your organization is a tops-down organization, if to do well on the performance appraisal, if you have to complete all of your goals, well, if you have to do that and complete them all on time, in most organizations, that's not going to help innovation. Now, certainly when you have commitments to customers, like in manufacturing or quality, finance, you have to hit those commitments. I'm not saying miss those. What I am saying is innovation, as I said at the beginning, is a process of moving forward. And particularly with OKRs, you have a goal that you want to hit to and progress to make with milestones. But as you learn more, those milestones change. And organizations that change their performance management systems for innovation, they reward collaboration, people asking questions, and also taking risks as long as they're moving forward. So changing that performance management system is critical. These are the 6 traits of highly innovative organizations. We're going to go through them. I'm going to show the results of all of you who follow IdeaScale. I'm going to show the results next of how you all did on these 6 traits. And then I'm going to go through each of these 6 traits individually, showing you what highly innovative organizations do and what not so innovative organizations do. So let's take a look at your results. So what you see here on this radar diagram or spider diagram are the 6 traits: leadership, resources, collaboration, idea management process, being empowered, level of empowerment, and performance management. What you see in the blue line are high innovators, their responses. What you see in the orange line are low innovators, their responses as a group. So 79 people filled out the survey. Actually, about 150 opened it, about 79 filled it out. It was, I think, 7, 8 questions. We also asked, I think, the size of your organization. And the difference between the high innovators and the low innovators is statistically significant using a chi-square analysis. So we're very confident about this. And so those who are highly innovative, they basically score at the 70% level in about all of these 6 traits. In idea management process, it's a little lower. In performance management, that tends to be kind of on the lower side. Empowerment, very high, but see, they're in the 70% range. The low innovators, they're kind of just barely out of the 40s. 40% range. That's a big difference. What is also interesting is that when we have done this work, doing surveys with organizations like the Conference Board, which we did with a global survey with them, mostly of North American, European countries, and Japan and China, in 2017, 2019, doing it again in 21. We have found similar results, this big division between high innovators and low innovators. And in those results, we could also pair data that shows the high innovators are much more financially successful, in addition to the studies I cited earlier about being more successful and having better financial results in highly innovative organizations. So for all of you who filled this out, this is terrific. Glad that you filled it out, glad that you helped us. Hopefully you found it insightful. And these are the results. And so the organizations that work on these 6 traits, and they don't have to, you don't master innovation, you keep working on it. These organizations, they're going to do better at innovation. So let's go through each of these 6 traits, and we're going to start with leadership. And again, as you people have questions, feel free to, send them in. Jessica will be picking out particularly timely questions as we go through it. And of course, we'll save time at the end. But we're going to talk now about leadership. And what is it that the leaders do in highly innovative organizations? Well, as I said earlier, they set innovation as a strategic imperative. And they start with the context. They start with the context. What is it that their organization's customers are experiencing that is leading to differences, that is leading to them wanting a new experience from you? What challenges do the customers have from either their customers or challengers? What are the socio-demographic trends going on? And these are important. I can tell you that a leader in home thermostats, Honeywell, never saw coming that millennials would want to control their home thermostat and their security system from their smartphones. Never saw it coming. And they don't even make thermostats anymore. They outsourced it. They couldn't compete with it anymore. So context is important, not just with your current customers, but social demographic trends, economic trends, technology trends. What's the vision for leadership? What's the vision for innovation? What's the general direction of innovation that your company needs? And part of that vision is also getting to the context. Is it incremental innovation? Is it you need to be disruptive and go up the chain? You know, frankly, a lot of incremental innovation is very helpful, as long as you keep coming with it and keep moving with it. Not everything has to be disruptive. What are those strategies? What are the goals? And then these leaders communicate that through the organization, and they talk about it all the time at all employee meetings, when they send out memos on updates, when they have a new milestone that they've achieved. In innovation, they talk about it. I know from my time leading HR for Medtronic Coronary and Peripheral, when the leader there had one of our innovation teams talking about the progress they've made, what did they succeed at, what did they fail at, and what was expected. Those all employee meetings were better attended and had higher results for being informative and motivating. So this is a great thing to talk about, and people love it. And that's part of keeping the focus on it. And these leaders do something different that we haven't talked a lot about yet, and that is they go from strategic doing, working a lot on their strat plans. And some organizations will spend 6 months of every year doing a strat plan, to strategic doing. In strategic doing, they still do the plan, but they move quickly on it, including what can we do next quarter, 6 months, and so on. They change quickly. The expectation and the culture of the organization is to welcome change and to know that they're going to change a lot. They don't plan for the sake of planning. They don't have long planning cycles that go 6 months to 3/4 of a year and then start all over again in 3 months. They look at it. They look at planning at key intervals or key milestones for whatever the technology or the strategic initiative they're looking at, but they move quickly at it. And they're looking at what do we stop doing? What do we start doing? Very publicly and very planfully. That's a key part of their planning and of their doing. So that's what they do. In low innovators, you can tell innovation's not a strategic imperative. They may talk about it as a value, but they don't always set the context. They tend to hoard the information they have, not sharing it. They don't have a clear vision that they follow through on. And when you don't follow through on something, employees will quickly determine, well, that's all show, no game there. And they tend they don't do the strategic doing. So leadership is critical, starts the whole thing. It's hard to be innovative without leaders giving permission to do it and having innovation as a strategic imperative. The second one is resources, and they invest in innovation. Now, we may think of the most important thing to innovate or to invest on are the labs, the facilities, maybe the new product technology. That's important. That's certainly important. But our research shows that organizational learning is one of the most important things. Now, investing in employee skills, the behaviors to be collaborative, learning to work with each other, building trust, giving people the time to be innovative, very important, very important. But organizational learning is really critical. And so what organizational learning is that everyone understands the challenges customers have, the challenges that our current products or services have, and what we're doing to fix it. And they also understand what we're working towards to be innovative in the future and what succeeds and fails. Later on, when we talk about empowered, I'm going to talk about an example of where a company had 6 innovation teams working on the same product solution, but different solutions. And the level of collaboration that existed between these teams, and even the team managers would come forward and say, of these 6, my team doesn't have the solution. Here's why. Take our resources, we recommend you give it to these other 2 teams. I'll talk about that. And that is a big part of organizational learning and creating this environment you want, and it takes investment in learning, investing in employee skills, keeping their skills sharp, the behaviors to be collaborative, certainly the labs, the technology, and digital tools. I wouldn't have said digital tools 6 years ago. But in our research with the conference board, we continually ask, what digital tools work? What are you using and what works? And what we find is highly innovative companies, first and foremost, they invest in digital tools, much more so than low innovators. And what they have great success with is big data analytics. They have a lot of success with crowdsourcing. They have more limited success with artificial intelligence. And what this gets to isn't just buying the technology, but digital transformation. How you put that technology integrated in your work processes so that the computer or the robot's doing what it does best and people do what they do best, and integrate that well. You have to do that in a very participative manner. It takes a good culture for doing that. And the high innovators figure that out. The low innovators really struggle with that. The Boston Consulting Group says 70% of digital transformation efforts fail. Actually, it's higher than that, about 80%, because the culture or the workforce rejects it. You got to work through the fears that they have and the misunderstandings they have for digital transformation to work. So we say you got to invest in digital tools, but also digital transformation. So that's what resources is about. Collaboration, the next one. Here, leaders unleash employee creativity. They promote collaboration. They invite employees to participate, ask questions, have a free flow of ideas. Now, in many organizations, and low innovators, you can have a pretty collaborative team. You can have a team that works well with who they give their work to. But what happens in low innovators is it breaks down in the hierarchy, or the hierarchy shuts down collaboration by over micromanaging, or the boundaries across the organization have rigid walls, or they can't engage with the external ecosystem. With the high innovators, they break through that. They don't necessarily have to cut or flatten the organization. Hierarchy does a lot of good things for organizations. It sets direction, vision, gives budget, empowers, says here's right and wrong by our values. Hierarchy does a lot of good things. But highly innovative companies learn to move through that to allow collaboration while sticking within the legitimate controls of the organization and speaking to the external organization. Many leaders say, well, I can't have my engineers talk to these engineers here with companies who maybe have some insights for us, but we can't have our IP disclosed. No, you can't. I agree. You can't disclose anything to somebody that if you're a publicly traded company that you haven't already publicly talked about. I agree. Respect that. But when you set the right context, back to context as a leader, these people who are going to talk to those outside of your organization are going to understand that. It's like going through a merger and acquisition process. People involved in that process know what they can and can't talk about. They're briefed on it. Do the same thing here. So highly innovative organizations, they allow this communication and collaboration to go through hierarchy, across boundaries, even with external partners. And they empower decision-making and risk-taking, aligned to the vision, the strategies of the organization and the organization's milestones. So if you want to invent something that has nothing to do with the company has every right to say, well, we just don't do that here. And then you have to make a decision about what you want to do. So it's aligned, but it's very empowering, very collaborating. Idea management. Do you ever have a great idea and don't know where to take it? Or you submit it and you never hear back? Highly innovative companies don't have that problem. They break through that because they have a well-known process to move ideas forward. And the organizational context describes what they're interested in. So I mentioned earlier, this may look different in R&D than it may on the manufacturing factory, but both still welcome new ideas and suggestions from employees. So in an R&D process, it may be a team has been created to come up with this new product or service or a whole new business model. And that team is often cross-functional. It may have some external players, and it has a bunch of other resources that they pull on within the organization and others. And they have a goal, an OKR, that talks about here's the end game, here's what we want to get to, here's the technologies we plan to use, here's the milestones we need to hit, here's the market conditions that we need to positively impact and the features for our customers. And as they move through that, they're going to do a bunch of experiments, learn, fail a lot, do new experiments, keep moving forward. And those milestones will change as they learn. That's part of an OKR process. That's part of innovation. On a factory floor, it may be at the end of every day, they talk about what worked, what didn't, and what improvements needed. And when they have a solution for it, there's a process to go tell engineering. And engineering works with them, doesn't ignore them, doesn't think, well, we're the engineers, we'll figure it out. They involve the employees. So it's a well-known process fitting the context of the organization. These processes and these cultures value employee ideas and their skills. And this is, if you're interested in diversity and inclusion, innovative cultures fit that because you have to value people's skills. You have to value their ideas or they'll stop making them, and you have to give them feedback. Speed. A lot of organizations generate a lot of ideas. They have a process to generate ideas, but the organization doesn't know how to make decisions about them or doesn't have a process for that. A lot of organizations these days, back to digital technology, will put in place a software platform for innovation management or project management. A lot of these are pretty good. But again, if they don't make the cultural transformation to interact with that database, give feedback to people and make decisions quickly and move ideas forward, even a great software, through no fault of its own, won't help because the culture won't accept it or the culture doesn't know how to use it. So that's a big part of it. Idea management process, very critical. Empowered. With empowered, empowerment, as I said earlier, you don't work on whatever you want. It has to be within the context, the vision, the milestones, the strategies of the organization. So leaders disseminating goals and information is critical. What's next is trust. There's been several studies that have come out recently that show the difference between a really smart, highly functioning work team, and one that doesn't do as well. And these studies have looked at things like the team understanding its goals and having great operating norms and having the smartest people or the best experts or the people most impassioned about the mission of the organization and the work. Those are all important, but they're not the number one factor. The number one factor is trust. You can't let the expert dominate the conversation. You can't have women feeling like they can't contribute, or anyone else feeling like they can't contribute because they're not the PhD in the room or the physicist or whatever the hierarchy is. Trust is critical, and leaders have a critical role in building that trust. So research by MIT has uncovered this. Google has published research from their people analytics group that basically what I told you earlier was almost a direct quote from their research. Trust is important. We published some blogs on that if you want to see that, but trust is important. High innovators build that. The low innovators don't. And employees have access to the collective knowledge of the organization and its ecosystem. Again, this gets back to talking about collaboration, letting people collaborate, gather data where they need to. These employees can prototype, build upon each other's ideas, and perhaps most importantly, project managers decide on reallocating resources or the priorities or what will fail and what won't fail. And they make fact-based decisions. So earlier I said I'd tell you a story about 6 teams that were set up to develop a new technology. And this was when I was with Medtronic, coronary and peripheral. And so these teams were all working towards a different product or technology solution. And again, in a highly innovative culture, you want to fail fast, furiously, and frequently. What did you learn today? What's tomorrow's experiment? If you have one team doing that, that's terrific. If you have 6, you're more than doubling down. You're really working it. But the environment that they created was such that these teams would come back and give a review quarterly to top management on their goals, their achievement against their milestones, how the technology worked. Would it still work in the marketplace when it was going to be released? Would it come in at the right price point, the right features? And in the process of selecting which of the 6 to move forward, in many cases, a team would say, we're not the one. We will fail, and here's why. Based on the current technology that we're using, we can't do this. And if we ever can overcome this technical issue, we can do it. Or maybe it's this supplier issue, we can do it. That's what you want. There's no bad mark for failing with that. It's about learning, moving forward, what's the best solution for the customer and satisfying our mission. That's what you mean by empowerment. And the people close to it, they know better than top management, who may have a preconceived idea. They may have a bias, but they need to let the process go forward and have a fact-based decision made. That's empowerment. Finally, performance management. If you're, if your goals and if you get points for achieving everything, getting all your goals done on time, not rocking the boat, that's going to hinder innovation. You want people to ask questions, to collaborate. If you have an expert that holds all of his expertise or her expertise, that's not good for innovation. They need to open up on that. Performance management isn't just about the performance management process when we talk about it, though the question you answered really was. It's also about organizational agility, particularly on your operations, and that they need to think out of the box, they need to be agile, and they need to quickly implement innovative solutions. And it can be very hard to get the attention of operations, particularly larger organizations, because they're all busy meeting this quarter's commitments, and they should be. But they have to have the agility to begin to take on and be successful with new innovations. Measures and metrics. You got to measure innovation, just like you measure financial performance. what fails, what succeeds. And as I said earlier, when you have knowledge that from a team that says this won't work now, but if we get this technology or can overcome this problem, it will, you want the organization's collective memory to know that. You do that with measures and metrics in a knowledge management system. But like anything else, it has to be measured. But what's critically important is that the measurement from performance management is done to improve innovation, not micromanage it, not slap hands. That's a big difference. Well, I think, Jessica, we might be coming up on the end here. But before we get to questions, I do want to say to everyone that Dr. Brooke Dobney gave me a call yesterday. He said, Victor, you know, what we need to do here is we need to say to the followers of IdeaScale that if anyone wants a free 6-question assessment for the whole organization, not just one individual, but for the whole organization, we will do that. What we ask is they write me, Victor Assad at InnovationOne.io. Give us their name, their title, the organization, their email, their phone number. Do that by May 31st. We will reach out to them to set this up. They will get a report that talks about the feedback from their workforce. Very short, 6 traits. And we are happy to do that. The reason is we love data, we want to collect data, and we want to help organizations be innovative. So if that's of interest to anyone, you have to May 31st to contact me, and we'd be happy to do that. And with that said, I can see, I think there's 9 questions there. I'll let you take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Victor. I think that's a really great offer for a lot of the people on this call, because I know some of them already have innovation programs. It'd be nice to get a good snapshot at their organization of where they're excelling and where they might need some help. And we do have some questions coming in already, but one of them for that reason, actually, that I found interesting was like, are these traits often like co-located? The question was, do you ever have organizations that are excellent at process, for example, but without leadership support? Or do you find that usually they're good at everything or they're weak in everything?
It's a mix. So some are, you know, that's part of not mastering and always working on it. So, you know, so some organizations generate a lot of ideas. They move the ideas forward. The top leaders know what the ideas are. They've given feedback to their employees, but they can't get their operations to make change for it. They're not agile enough to do it. So, you know, every organization we work with within these traits have some that they're very good at and some that need work. And, you know, this is cultural. So culture takes a little bit, but you got to have top management on board with the culture change or it won't stick. And you got to change your performance management system to support it.
Well, I think that leads nicely into the next question, which is about leadership. So this attendee says their organization included innovation in their mindset, but didn't surface it and elevate it as one of the strategic commitments or imperatives of the organization. The expectation was that they would all innovate across all strategic imperatives and operational plans as part of continuous improvement. This attendee is interested in hearing how we could advise leadership on how to make it more explicit in our strategic plan.
If it's important, you have to talk about it as a leader. And I would say, just like in the example I gave, at an all-employee meeting, you bring one of those innovation teams forward and let them tell their story, what they're working on, what succeeded, what hasn't, what help they need, when they're going to be back with, you know, another report. Nothing better than to get them up front and talking about it. I've seen presentations like that where these teams get applauded, even when they fail. So, and the workforce likes nothing better than learning about the future, what will be the future success of the organization, because that's a part of each worker's future success. So top leaders have to talk about it. That's part of showing the commitment. They keep talking about it and enthusiastic.
I was struck as you were going through the 6 traits about how important good communications is to each of the different disciplines. the leadership talking about it, communicating about the metrics so that people understand the value of it. And to that point about metrics, one of the questions was, how do the high performers measure innovation typically? Is it always financial?
At the end of the day, it's about improving organization outcomes. And certainly for a publicly traded or private company, that's going to be financial. But think about measures and metrics as process or predictive measures and final outcomes. Okay? So what you want in your measures are measures that are going to say, whoops, we're not going to hit this outcome. We got a problem here.
Yep.
That's what you want. And you can have that with innovation, and you want that with innovation. So you got to have measures and metrics, and some that are predictive to say we will or we won't hit this new product release or moving into a new industry or whatever it is. And this is not rocket science. This is not rocket science at all, but this is, and I work with the conference board, a lot of companies, even those who are otherwise high performers, don't have great measures, but those who do, man, is it impactful? It's very impactful.
One of the conversations here was about how to get more attention from leaders. So what are some of the tactics for getting attention of operational leaders so that they can improve that organizational agility?
A goal.
A goal. Do you have an example from one of your clients or stories?
Yeah. I'm not going to name the company, but they were going to shut down this one product line because they had a new product which had gained a lot of attention. They were going to release it, but they got feedback from outside of the United States that product that they wanted to cancel because manufacturing didn't want to continue to use that manufacturing line and technology for the old product. They wanted to add it to the volume of the new product. Mm-hmm. And the people from three large countries outside of the United States, no, we need that product for our healthcare system. Here's why. Mm-hmm. And they were right. And so what operations had was a goal to maximize product sales that was more important than maximizing operational efficiency. That's what they were going to, and that's what they should be working on. But it was like, no, you got to have this goal. I mean, another example I'll tell you is that another company had made an acquisition, bought something, and sales, marketing, operations just didn't want to be bothered with this new company's products because they didn't really understand it. They didn't know it. But look, if M&A mergers and acquisitions are going to be successful, your back office and your sales and marketing has to do it. And nothing's going to do that like a goal. So, and by the way, the new purchase was a great purchase. It did a lot for the company and offerings to current customers. But, early in my career, I learned old habits die hard, but nothing changes that like a goal. And a good conversation.
Another thread that was woven throughout was like all of the people work that also supports some of this cultural work that needs to be done. And so one of our attendees actually asked about how HR figures in there. What are some specific ways HR leaders can support the adoption of these traits?
Well, HR is critical. I'm an HR guy. And I will tell you one of the most important things about any organization is its culture. Some HR people say, oh, culture is not my thing. That's the CEO. I'm going to do great talent acquisition and talent management and performance management and pay and so on. Culture is a part of it. Culture holds it all together. And HR has the tools to really build great culture and make cultural transformation. It's in our literature. Our research, people like John Cotter, others. And HR needs to be a leader in cultural transformation to support innovation and all that, what I said earlier about digital transformation. They need to be a leader in that and how to integrate robots with people in established work processes. Boston Consulting Group's work, McKinsey's done it too, we've done it, that shows digital transformation fails most of the time because the culture rejects it. HR ought to be stepping forward to say, if you're going to buy that technology, here's the process we have to put in place to get the workers who are going to use this technology involved with it early on, and be honest about it. If it's going to reduce 20% of the workforce, be honest about that and what you're going to do to either place them somewhere else or work through that. They figure it out. If you don't talk about it, doesn't mean they're not talking about it. They are. And they're going to come back and bite you if you don't work the process. So it's critically important. Hopefully that answers the question.
To go in a different direction, one of the things that you were talking about during the use of digital tools was about the high innovators having a lot of success with big data. And so one of the questions was, what does success look like when somebody is utilizing big data solutions?
Well, what success looks like is that they are finding correlations, relationships, predictive relationships between factors they didn't know existed. That may seem abstract, but that's what big data does for you. It moves through data quickly, particularly when it goes online, which I think really is a major component of artificial intelligence. You have that. When you look at what we're doing now for cancer, and people are surviving cancer like never before. That's big data and AI finding correlations about people's DNA and treatment. It's remarkable what Pfizer did and Moderna did for coronavirus. I've been in this industry. Usually pharma has a 10-year clinical trial. They did it in less than a year. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that. How did they do that?
How did they do it?
Yeah, I don't get it. Fauci gets it. I don't get it. I should, but I marvel at it. That's what big data does for you. And, and across many different industries, certainly in highly regulated industries, scientific industries, it's very, very critical. But, companies that want to look at improving their work processes or answering commonly asked employee questions, the data's there. Boom, do it. Or so are the platforms. It's incredible. It's just mind-boggling to me. I can't stop talking about it.
Well, to get back, it sounded like you really like talking about goals. So the good news is we have another question about goals. How much should goals change to support agility? Or asked another way, same person, is there a frequency at which goals become ineffective due to changing too quickly?
So OKRs are good. That's the first part of this process. So an objective that you have for a year or a specific point of time, but the milestones are going to change as you learn things, which may change the goal. And with OKRs, a lot of the experts say, if you hit them 100%, they're not tough enough. What we do know about organizations, now in OKR, the objective stays the same. So it's to achieve A by this point. But this point may change as we learn things, but it's always achieve A. If an organization is constantly changing new initiatives or handing down new goals, but doesn't get rid of old goals or old initiatives, what the research shows is that employees will, on their own, choose to do things that they like or are good at, no matter what the goal is. And when it comes to the performance review, they stand on what they achieved. And what that really says is management's confused. Management has not moved the organization forward. Nobody's going to expect they're going to have the same goals throughout the year, right? Life is too dynamic, VUCA world, all of that. But management and the team leader have to make sense in how the context for the organization is changing. Highly innovative companies do that. So if you're going to change an initiative, what now will we not work on or will get delayed?
That was one of my thoughts when you were talking about resources, actually. That's one of the jobs of leaders in order to make room for people to have time to work on these things, is to say not just what we are going to do, but what we're not going to do to make room for it.
Well, exactly. And, there's, 3M, Google, actually, Google doesn't say this anymore, but, 3M has had a long-standing for almost 100 years now with their CEO, McKnight. Researchers take 20% of, time to do their own work.
Yeah.
They still practice that. Some organizations can do that, some cannot. But when you empower innovation, and you get 30% of your workforce to work on that, that's an intrinsic reward for those who work on it. Now, I'm not saying work people to death. You got to give them time to work on it. You got to give them resources, seed money, and so on. But when you get those intrinsic rewards working, that's powerful.
Well, I think that's the end of our questions, which is perfect because we're finishing right on time. So I just want to remind everyone of the great offer that Victor has extended to you at your organization. You have the opportunity to launch this 6-question assessment internally at your organization to find out where you are performing best. All you have to do is get in touch with Victor. You can see his contact information there. And also in the follow-up email where I share the slides and the recording, I'll include it as well so that you guys can get in touch and see where the 6 traits live for you guys. Victor, thank you so much for joining and sharing all your research today.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you all, and particularly people who filled out the survey. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.